Disclaimer, this video is educational and informative in nature. Do not contact anyone shown in this video. Also, this video is discussing steroids. Do not use steroids. This is entirely for educational and entertainment purposes only.
This fitness influencer experienced heart failure with an ejection fraction of 10% and has been hospitalized multiple times, losing all of his muscle. Some of you may know John Skywalker, and I do too. In some sense, I feel awful for the dude. You have watched these issues develop in him at such a young age, but in other words, I also feel like this is a good thing to talk about, because for people to see this, to see how early this can actually happen when somebody is truly reckless with steroids, is completely valuable. You need to know this kind of stuff. Now, this is the John that most people know about. This is also John Skywalker.
What's your biggest fear?
Biggest fear? Dying skinny.
Which, interestingly, unfortunately, those words did not age well. John was known for his party lifestyle and then leveraging steroids to maintain an exceptional physique. So he would basically live a very bad lifestyle in some people's eyes and then use steroids and other enhancements to maintain an exceptional physique to represent being this fitness guy. It wasn't a secret either. He was very open about this. He was kind of the first adopter of the kind of trend twins persona online, where he was very, very explicitly open about steroid usage, and he was just a guy having fun. He wasn't an expert. As far as 10 years ago, he was posting his content frequently and it was blowing up. The dude had an attractive physique, he had a great hairline, and was doing the whole rave scene thing when that was big. And a lot of his posts contained steroids, raves, and drugs ultimately, and that is not a great combo to put together. As of now, John just posted an update basically saying that he has been hospitalized multiple times for congestive heart failure, and at one point his ejection fraction was below 10%, and he's been trying to crawl his way back from that. In this update, he did say that it has improved, but nowhere near normal. This is still heart failure clinically. Now, I want to be careful with what I'm saying here, because I'm not a doctor and I'm certainly not his doctor, so I don't know everything that's going on, but I will try to speculate for educational purposes in some senses. I'm basically using what he's told everybody, and then I'm extrapolating into kind of what I think is probably going on, and then using that information to help you guys understand what the heck is going on. So if you don't know, an ejection fraction is basically how much blood your left ventricle pushes out with each beat. The American Heart Association puts normal in line at somewhere between 55 to 70% range. And under 40% almost always means you're in clinical heart failure or cardiomyopathy. This is absolutely no go. Usually, that's the spot of no return when we talk about cardiomyopathy. So a lot of bodybuilders are actually sitting there, more than would like to mention it. At that point, essentially, your heart is barely capable of doing enough to keep you conscious and alive. You could barely stand up, you could barely breathe. Your bodily function is so inhibited at 10% ejection fraction. It's honestly terrifying to think about, and kind of makes sense why he's lost so much weight, because there's virtually nothing that you can do. And this is a huge problem, believe it or not, with steroid culture right now. Everybody is chasing the aesthetics, the identity, the reputation, and virality on social media, while they treat the heart like some background process that you don't have to pay for at some point. The heart is not impressed by your abs. The heart does not care how capped the delts are. And your heart does not negotiate. It doesn't say,
well, you use steroids for 6 months, so if you take the next 3 off, we should be good to go.
No, unfortunately, it doesn't do that. To add to that, the problem is a lot of the wild and degenerate shit that kids are doing these days on top of taking steroids is a huge factor to comorbidities, and specifically cardiac comorbidities. I mean, the wild degenerate stuff is literally being promoted by social media platforms, and they are basically compiling steroids with drugs like ketamine, alcohol, Adderall, and so much more. I mean, we just saw not too long ago, freaking Toji, took way too much Adderall and ended up in the hospital. That is going to excite the cardiac tissues and lead to dysfunction. I mean, that does it independently, but then you add a gram plus of steroids to it, you're going to develop issues. And again, I have to stress this. I said this in one of my last videos, but it's not this thing where you do it and then you kind of forget it happened. You know, you respect your health for a little bit and it goes away. It's like you're putting pennies into a penny jar. They slowly add up, and when you look away, all the pennies don't disappear. They stay there. The next time you come out another penny and the pennies stack up. And over time, you get a jar full of pennies. Great in this context, but bad when we're talking about the impacts and deviations to your health that slowly degrade function and fitness over a lifetime. I mean, it adds up, and these events aren't inescapable. They continue to stay with you for the majority of your life. God forbid a guy talks about a couch actress on YouTube and the video gets completely demonetized and suppressed in the algorithm. But everybody else can promote drug use and do couch actressing, and it's totally fine. I don't understand how the internet works, honestly. So let's back up a bit, set the scene, kind of how we always do. John is one of those names that got mythologized online. He's tall, he's aesthetic, crazy transformation, huge influence from the Ziz era, which is basically the same thing that he's doing. Then you've got the other version of John, which has been floating around for years, the die skinny mindset guy, the chaos, the self-destructive package as motivation, you know what I mean? He's the whole thing. And you've got this next version, maybe pinnacle, I'm not sure, we'll see what he does after this, but the hospital version, the hospitalized John. And whether you like it or not, I mean, it should really show you the biggest possible change in somebody taking this path for themselves. Because this isn't a 60-year-old guy. This isn't a 50-year-old guy. This isn't a 40-year-old guy. This isn't a person who ate like garbage for 10 years and abused his body in the worst ways. And then when he got to 40, he had a stroke. This isn't that case at all. This is a guy who just touched 30, looked amazing, basically had everything that everyone probably would want in a respective situation such as his. He was, in a sense, like the fitness standard. Derek More Plates, More Dates would make videos about him. Greg Doucette would make videos about him. His physique was definitely pinnacle. His hairline was great. And like everyone wanted to know, how did he develop this? How did he do this? How does his hairline stay? How did all this thing, right? He was the talk of the in town for a while, but he still ended up with heart failure in his 30s. Like, that is real. Now, here's the gray zone where people tend to intellectually get pretty lazy. A lot of people want a story to be simple. Steroids did this, or he deserved it, which you do see a lot of the times in comment sections and stuff, which I don't agree, by the way. Most any video I cover about something like this, where there's a huge medical condition, a death, whatever the case might be, I am never going to say he deserved it, because I don't believe any human deserves this kind of path. It's an awful place to be. They may have had actions that put them in a path that sort of aligns with where they ended up, but that doesn't mean they deserved it. Or, you know, on the other side, you have people who justify his actions. They also say it was just genetics, it's unfair, he was unlucky. It was all just by chance. Truth is, in reality, without a full medical history and a workup by a very highly familiar medical professional to his situation, we aren't going to know much. But what I can say very, very clearly, without any doubt, there is real published data showing that long-term anabolic androgenic steroid use is associated with measurable changes in the heart, including left ventricular systolic function being reduced, lower ejection fraction in some users, and that's honestly been shown in controlled research comparing long-term users to non-users. Some of the best steroid-based research that we have to date is showing these kind of characteristics developing in those users. And more recently, you've got data linking the cumulative lifetime AAS exposure leading to signs of coronary atherosclerosis and myocardial dysfunction through imaging. And believe it or not, the longer that people are on, the more dysfunction you tend to see.
No shit, Sherlock.
Does this prove that John's case was completely and solely steroids? No, but it absolutely says that there are at least people who, you know, are trying to cope that this wasn't steroids and it was just the party drugs. This is the thing that they'll cling to, but in reality, it was likely the steroids plus the party drugs plus the lifestyle in general. And a lot of people think that if they just get blood work, they're going to be fine. But any of the things I just mentioned, you won't be able to see those on blood work. Blood work doesn't show a scarred ventricle. Blood work doesn't show cardiac remodeling. Blood work doesn't show electrical instability until it's a significant and very fucking real problem. A lot of the scariest stuff that bodybuilders and in general, everybody trying to be healthy would be worried about, it's silent. You can't actually determine it on blood work. Now, don't get me wrong. Blood work is an amazing step that a lot of people should really look into, because I don't think enough people do blood work. Even from a very young age, you could argue that you want to be getting repeated blood work multiple times a year, but it's not going to give you a definitive you are or are not healthy. Now, I'm going to say something that is almost going to sound contradicting to a lot of videos that I make, but it's really important to say. A lot of people are going to want to argue that steroids are causal here. This was all steroids. They were the primary cause, but the lifestyle needs to be considered too. And when you have a lifestyle that's pretty degenerative, that is paired with PED usage, this is not just one bad decision, but it's multiple bad decisions stacking on top of each other. It's decades of small decisions on a day-to-day basis that led to this kind of ultimate outcome. Reality is, it looks something like you crank the androgens up and blood pressure goes up. Lipids get worse. Your heart adapts to the pressure and volume demands of these androgen receptor variations, and that can cause thickening and stiffness and remodeling. Then you add stimulant use, sleep deprivation, party drugs, which we know what those can be. Dehydration due to a rave environment, specifically with the use of compounds that are typically selected at rage environments, inhibiting the desire to drink water. You know what those are if you know. Extreme dieting, diuretics in some individual cases, but what people are using to essentially stay peeled and look dry and crisp a lot of the times, especially for photo shoots. And now you're in a scenario where you're hitting multiple pathways, multiple angles, where your heart is just chronically being like smashed into a wall at that point, getting curb stomped. And here's the reason why it's worth talking about, is in reality, is because the people who are on social media talking about their steroid usage, showing an exotic lifestyle, they aren't just selling you the steroid usage, they're selling you the lifestyle. People don't buy things because they think they're cool. They often buy things because people they relate to wear, do, or eat, or whatever the thing that they're buying. People relate enough to you, and then they use that as leverage to adopt some portion of your lifestyle. It's why influencing is it is the biggest marketing machine in the entire world, because people can relate to somebody and then through that relation feel comfortable paying for a product, service, or good. Essentially, a lot of young men, especially now more than ever before, are adopting this extreme, this craziness, this like exotic promotion of steroid abuse and getting jacked and looks maxing and taking peptides and doing all this crazy shit, which I think there's marginal boundaries that are acceptable for sure, but a lot of it is getting to a point of excess by far. And the problem is, a lot of them don't realize the bill is going to come sooner or later. It's not just a little bit of acne. No, that's the early inconveniences of doing this kind of thing. It is heart remodeling. It is ejection fraction completely diminishing without you even noticing it until you're below 60% ejection fraction and you're dealing with potential heart failure at 28 years old, which is not uncommon. Now, the tricky part about this is when your ejection fraction is this low, it's not about just pulling back, taking some supplements, doing some R&R, is not that. Fortunately, the medical reality that John is in is this puts him into a position where he needs lifelong aggressive management of this, and the chances of recovery are genuinely pretty slim. Most people don't recover. They get a brief timeline in which they have an expected endpoint, if you understand what I'm saying, and that's it. And even if one does miraculously improve from this kind of situation, it's not like, it's grim and I really hate talking about it, but it's not like they come back to perfect, right? You have to live life on a bit of a tightrope. You can't drink caffeine. You have to be very restrictive with stimulants. You have to be very careful with medications. You can't mistime them. You can't combine them with certain compounds. It gets hectic. And a lot of people tend to watch stuff like this and they're like, well, yeah, that won't happen to me, bro. That's yesterday's news, brother. I'm on to the next one. News cycle tomorrow, trenbolone acetate, and no test. Okay. Brother's gonna blast his socks off, develop the next best physique, get 100K followers on Instagram, and start pushing products for probably Young LA at this point, based on their incompetence, but that is the same mental move that everyone does. And eventually they get humbled, dude. Like eventually they get humbled. And a lot of the times the worst outcomes don't even happen to the idiots. They happen to the people, the guys who look aesthetic, seem like they take care of themselves, do the due diligence. There's no way to promise that PED exposure is going to be safe and sound, even if you do everything right. And the fitness industry has sort of normalized a level of PED exposure that is reserved for the highest level of competitors, genuinely. And now we've got regular dudes blasting in cycles that would blow your socks off just to get a six-pack, bro. Which it's like, that's kind of crazy if you think about it. That's kind of crazy. And I've talked about this before as well, and you guys know it, but it's massively incentivized by social media, by brands, by everything else. Because the greater and more extreme your body, the more clicks. The greater and extreme your strength and capacity to move weight, more clicks. The more irrational and radical your behavior is, more clicks. Look, at the end of the day, wrapping this video up, fuck it. John is a legit dude. I know he didn't have bad intentions with his life. He didn't intentionally want anyone to do anything bad. He was never a bad person. He's just not the most educated guy in the realm of pharmacology, pharmacokinetics, dynamics, and polypharmacy specifically. And I don't think he had many positive support systems, we'll put it that way, in place to help him slow down or tell him to slow down when that was necessary. If, you know, a guy is in this situation and I'm his friend, which I just tend not to be friends with guys like that. You know, a couple of things that I'd be really urging people to do is get like EKGs regularly on probably a yearly basis, echocardiograms, certainly. Shit like that could have literally, just those two things could have probably prevented a lot of this from happening ever to begin with, because you would have seen it before it got so bad that it was irreversible. But sometimes you just aren't booted up into the game. You're not spawned with a good loadout, brother. Like, you just don't have that information, and unfortunately you go crazy because it feels fine, but it ain't so fine. But hopefully those of you watching, which probably few by now because I've been talking way too long, and I noticed that kills videos. But basically what we want to get out of this is steroids great, right? Don't get me wrong. I am not going to be the one to tell you that they suck, because they absolutely don't. However, they do present a large cost, especially when you don't know what the hell you're doing. And this is the most deleterious thing, is a lot of people think that they need astronomical amounts of gear. A lot of people think if they're not building a physique off of 200 milligrams, 300 milligrams is just a necessity, 400, 500, 1,000, 2,000. A lot of people think that if their body isn't responding to steroids, they should just take more, and that's probably what everyone is doing. And they lead themselves down this path of absolute self-destruction, when in reality all they want is a decent physique, which can be achieved naturally with a good deal of time, but everyone wants to take the shortcut. Everyone wants to take the shortcut, which I don't blame them. I think a little bit of shortcut is fine, but a lot of shortcut, you taking IFBB pro levels of fucking shit, is definitely not fine. And I'll be so honest in saying that there is this success bias on social media where you get to see everyone who's really successful. You get to see the best physiques, the best responses to pharmacology and training. You get to see the best people who look the leanest with the most amount of ease. You may not be that person, and taking more gear won't make you that person. It's just the unfortunate reality of the situation. There's over 153 genomic variations that correlate to having a good physique. Any one of those being off or in the disposition is going to lead you to a less than ideal result compared to another guy. Your physique is not proof of you being a good person. It's not proof of you having wealth and knowledge and intellect. It's not proof of your health even. It is a obvious statement, no doubt. You walk into a room, you're a jacked guy, people notice you, but it isn't one that's so worthy of waiving all concern of longevity, health, and what your true aspirations are in life to go down that path, right? I hope that makes sense. I don't know if it did, but I hope it did. And because we're just at the end of the video, fuck it, why not? If you haven't heard, I made a couple products, all right? We made a couple products. It was me and a couple of my friends. So essentially what we did is we put together a hair loss formulation for dudes who have been on steroids, or even dudes who haven't been on steroids and have lost quite a bit of hair. This product is supposed to help you regain ground, but it can also prevent you from losing more hair. It's a really unique product where we sort of culminated all of the ingredients that we think would be very effective in terms of a pharmaceutical standpoint to preventing and regrowing hair in a long-term standpoint for many different men. Also, we have nootropics on there as well that we manufactured. Really difficult process, to be honest. Manufacturing anything is actually, I don't understand how so many people do it, but anyways, we did it. And those things will be down in the description below. Every single purchase does help out the channel. You can use code Coachkolton. It does get you a discount. I would appreciate if you just took a look, and see what happens. Just took a look-sees. All right, I'll see you in the next video.